Hey guys, you're looking to upgrade your CPU cooler? Well, if you do that, then your computer will run quieter, cooler, and you'll be able to overclock it. So let's get into that in this tutorial. So right off the bat, the first thing you'll need to do is really need to measure the space available from the motherboard to the side door on your desktop, because some smaller desktops honestly won't support bigger CPU coolers. So measure that and then compare that to the CPU cooler you ultimately pick, which is of course the next step you need to do. Right here I have the Cooler Master Hyper Evo 212 or 212 Evo. This is a really basic CPU cooler. It's also really cheap, and it's actually it's a damn great value too. I already have it on my own desktop. This is my dad's desktop I'm putting it on. And it'll make it run, the CPU cooler run cooler, and because it's a bigger fan, more surface area and everything, it'll, on top of being cooler, it'll actually be quieter because the fan doesn't have to spin as fast. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my motherboard outside of this desktop and I'm going to put it on the motherboard box. It's a really good place to put it on just because you don't want to have it touch the ground and shit like that. You don't necessarily need to take the motherboard out. It can kind of be easier if it's a smaller desktop, but on custom desktops like this one, they actually have cutouts for the back plate, because the back plate is one thing you'll need to upgrade. So you can technically still upgrade the CPU cooler without taking the motherboard out, but you can do it either way. If it's a Dell or like an HP or something, you'll probably have to take it apart altogether. So now let's get down to the installation. I'm going to leave you guys for a little bit and you guys will be able to listen to my voiceover while we install this CPU cooler. Hell yeah, let's get down to it. Alright, so starting off, you'll want to take off the old CPU cooler if there is one. If it's a new system, we'll have to do this, of course. But first, I take off the power connector right there. This is for an AMD system, so it'll be a little bit different for Intel, but you flip that clip like you just saw there, and then you want to get the clip out of the mounting hardware so that the CPU cooler is free from the motherboard. Then you want to twist and do a little bit of pulling. Just be really gentle, because if you pull really hard, it might actually rip the CPU out. But just be gentle with it, twist, pull, and then eventually you'll have that thing pop off a little bit. It can be pretty tight sometimes, so just be really gentle with it. And we got the CPU cooler off now. Next, we'll have to take off the mounting hardware, because the new CPU cooler will use new mounting hardware. That's those plastic parts in the ends. You see me screwing that off. And I want to mention really quick, you see this is a rectangular system. Intels have square, so you'll want to make sure if you have AMD or Intel whenever you're doing this whole process, because once you put on like the back plate and stuff, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you want to make sure you have AMD or Intel. So in this case, I'm just taking off this old mounting hardware, just put that stuff away for now. You want to do each side, of course, like I just did there. And then once you lift up the motherboard, you'll see the back plate right there. That's the old back plate. That basically holds the CPU cooler, something, it gives something to screw into. So take off the old one, and most likely you'll be using a new one for the new CPU. Here I'm using some stuff to take off the old thermal paste. I can put a link in the description where you guys can buy some of this stuff. It takes off the old thermal paste and basically just preps the CPU for the new thermal paste. So you want to make sure you do this. It'll give you better thermal performance if you put on brand new thermal paste and if you take off the old stuff first. So if you have any troubles with that, just let me know in the comment section. I usually do it twice on there just to make sure everything gets off, and then you just wipe that stuff up and cleans off the CPU. And then after that, I'm going to use some other stuff that will basically prep the surface for the thermal paste. So you just put some of that on there and make sure the CPU is all good and clean. Hell yeah. Alright, so yeah, I'm just getting all this, the CPU ready for the new thermal paste here. After this, I'm going to be unboxing the CPU cooler I bought, the Hyper 212 Evo. If you're using a different CPU cooler, it might be a little bit different process, so just make sure you check out your instruction manual as I show here. It'll tell you all the parts that come with it, because a lot of parts come with these CPU coolers, a lot of like back plates and stuff, and you use a different side of the back plate for AMD builds and you use a different side for Intel builds, so make sure you keep that in the back of your head, I guess. Here I'm going to pull out some thermal paste. Most CPU coolers come with some. But of course, they don't come with the stuff to take off old thermal paste. So if you need some of that, let me know, and I'll give you a link to where you can buy that stuff. Here is the fan right there. That's the back plate right there. The rectangular side is for AMD. The square side is for Intel. If you have any troubles with that, check out the instruction manual because it can be a little bit tricky. There's a lot of different holes, and that's because these things are meant to work with various different Intel and AMD CPUs. Next, I'm going to be taking off the fan of the heatsink. That basically makes the heatsink smaller, and it makes it a lot easier to install it. It's actually probably impossible to install with the fan on, so make sure you take off the fan prior to installation. You can put it back on later, trust me. You also want to take off the thing on the bottom of the heatsink, and that'll make sure that I don't know that it's good for using, I guess. Here, you can't see this right now, but I do have the back plate on there, so make sure you have the back plate. You want to have something to screw into, and then you want to basically just hook up the mounting hardware. It's different on every system, and it's kind of tricky, I'll tell you what, because you want to be able to touch both sides of it at the same time. So it works like on a box like this, or if you have the whole cutout on your CPU or your desktop, then that works out too. But it's just a little bit tricky, be careful and everything. Keep looking at that manual. So you see the back plate right there, and yeah, the rectangular part is touching the motherboard. For AMD builds on this CPU cooler, and if you weren't doing that, you would use the square for Intel. Here I'm putting the thermal paste on there. That's how I put my thermal paste on. I just do a straight line across. It works fine for me. You don't really have to gob the whole thing up, so just use it sparingly. Okay, now here I'm putting on the CPU cooler, and I'll tell you what, CPU cooler installation at this point in the process is pretty tough. So just make sure you do it. Just be careful. It's kind of a pain in the ass, as you see from me just putting my whole shirt in front of the camera. You do want to go in a cross directional, I guess, approach to it. So you want to do one on one corner, one on the other corner, then you want to go to that next corner, and then you want to go to the other corner. So you don't want to put too much pressure on one side, because if you put too much pressure on one side and screw it down too much, then it'll be impossible to go to the other corner, and vice versa with all the other corners. So just be careful with that. It's honestly a total pain in the ass. Just be gentle, and eventually you'll figure it out. And if you don't, then just give me a comment in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to help you out. Here I'm putting the fan back on, and you just want to make sure you do that, obviously, and then I go ahead and push it down. As you can see with that RAM right next to it, a lot of these bigger CPU coolers have problems with high profile RAM. So just keep that in mind, I guess, whenever you're installing all this stuff. Next, I'm going to plug in the fan. Of course, you have to do that. And then at that point, I am pretty much ready to go. So it'll take way longer than this, of course, to do it yourself. But there you go. You got a CPU cooler installed, and it's going to run way cooler. Hell yeah. Alright, and there it is running the Cooler Master Hyper Evo 212, or Hyper 212 Evo, I think. Here's Charlie. I'm going to try to keep him out of the desktop, because cats aren't good for electronics, believe it or not. But yeah, there it is running right there. Pretty sweet stuff. Totally completely installed, and look at that. It is booting up just fine, which is definitely a great sign. Oh, look at Charlie. Oh, Charlie. Charlie. Look at you. Oh, he's a movie star. And look at our temperatures. Looks like it's not running really too bad. About 20. Let's see. The computer just booted up, so everything's trying to load up all at once. Looks like whenever it's like at idle, I guess it's somewhere around 10 maybe. And whenever it's opening a bunch of programs, it's like obviously higher than that. So yeah, we can try opening up some browsers and shit. I'll open up all three all at once and see what my temps go to. And yeah, like 20 something. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's not too big of a test, but pretty cool stuff. Not too bad at all. I think before it was running like definitely in the 30s or something, just like idle, because stock AMD and Intel coolers really aren't that good, but I mean, they get the job done. But this will run quieter, and because it runs quieter, I can, well, actually, because it runs cooler, that means I can turn the fan speeds down, and then the computer will be quieter. So pretty cool stuff. So thank you guys for checking out this how-to video. If you have any troubles getting this to work, honestly, installing a CPU cooler isn't really a pretty process. It's really kind of a pain in the ass sometimes. But I'll tell you what, it's really worth it. Computer runs so much quieter, and I don't know, it runs cooler too, so you can overclock if that's your thing. So thank you guys for checking out this video. Thank you for checking out Charlie, and drop a like in this video if you thought it was helpful. But beyond that, you guys have a great motherfucking day, and see you, Charlie. Meow, 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 meow. Oh, look at that. Look at that. See you guys.